All right, our next guest is the Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division at the U.S. Department of Justice, folks. That's right. Always happy to have Harmeet Dhillon join us. Welcome back, Harmeet. We talk a little bit about this news today of the sniper shooting the 3 ICE detainees at a Dallas ICE facility this morning. 6:30 a.m., by the way. 2 of the detainees have died. Third one in critical condition. We hear he or she may survive that. The shooter has not been identified, I believe, as of this moment, but the unused shell casings found had an anti-ICE message engraved on it. The shooter also killed himself. So tell us a little about what you know, what you're hearing, Harmeet, if you will.
Well, look, I'm not at liberty to talk about an ongoing investigation like this, so I don't really have any details to share. But what I can say is that we've seen escalating rhetoric against our federal law enforcement officials, including ICE agents, for some time now. And that has come from people, including Governor Gavin Newsom and other very powerful people who should know better than to be egging on hatred and targeting our federal law enforcement. And so I think a lot of people should be doing some introspection here as to whether it is appropriate for people who've sworn to uphold the Constitution to be putting metaphorical targets on the backs of our law enforcement who are doing their jobs. And it's not consequence-free. We're seeing the normalization of this kind of violence in multiple different settings. You see Antifa targeting ICE facilities on the West Coast. You see the government of California trying to strip ICE officials and officers from wearing masks to be able to do their jobs safely. And now you're seeing this. So I think regardless of the facts of this particular circumstance, I'm a federal law enforcement official, and I will say, I think we're all concerned about the normalization of violence against those of us who uphold these oaths and do these jobs.
Trump 1.0, the left, the Democrats are going crazy. They're saying words matter, words have meaning, and they hated the words that Trump was using. And now it's almost like the script has flipped on them because words do in fact matter. We saw it in Minnesota, or the shooter, when he killed the 2 kids, had killed Donald Trump, anti-fascist comments on his shell casings, on his magazines, etc. And then we have Charlie Kirk's murderer, assassin, who had written, "Hey, fascist, catch," on the shell casing that he used, the bullet they used to kill Charlie Kirk. And now we hear this guy in Dallas has anti-ICE written on shell casings. So words matter, heightened rhetoric matters, and yet the Democrats keep pointing the finger this way. Let's play the soundbite referring to exactly what Harmeet just said. Gavin Newsom.
I'll be signing a bill, the first in the nation, saying enough. To ICE, unmask. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? If you're going to go out and you're going to do enforcement, provide an ID. Tell us which agency you represent. Provide us basic information that all local law enforcement is required to provide.
Can you, by the way, this went on as Charlie Kirk was being laid to rest. Can you believe this moron, this lunatic governor in California wants to basically, in essence, dox ICE agents?
This preening hypocrite forced millions of us in California to wear masks against our will on a, frankly, scientifically dubious basis. He is unaccountable, doesn't want people to have to provide ID to vote, and yet he thinks federal law enforcement officials doing a dangerous job, we can see how dangerous it is, should have to, like you said, be doxxed so that there could be targets on them from these crazy left-wing groups. Look, I don't think it's an accident that we have this spate of engraved shell casings with these messages in different places. I think that there are online groups that we're going to find out about and the public's going to find out about that are egging people on to do these kinds of things. We know this. There's been reporting about some of the potential sources of this. So I think this is a critical situation. Every American who has a leadership position, including Democrat governors, have a responsibility to keep the peace and not put targets on the backs of anybody, much less people who are carrying out law enforcement, state or federal. So they need to be more responsible, and then we all need to really be vigilant about this increased threat.
Tell us, you mentioned something there. There's some information on possibly a group suggesting to engrave things on shell casings before they commit crime?
Not specifically. What I said was there are groups that are egging people on to violence, and to violence that is political in nature. There are Discord groups. I mean, I think that's been widely reported. There are groups that are Antifa related. There are trans related groups. You're seeing, perhaps coincidentally, multiple instances of these engraved shells out there, different messages, but it's a fairly new thing. And so we're investigating these things.
Well, I love you. You're one of my close friends. You said not coincidentally. Can you just expand on that a little bit?
I said I don't think it's a coincidence. That's what I said. That's my hunch.
Okay.
We're going to find out the results.
I would agree
of the
with you.
investigation.
Just for the record, I would agree with you. I think you'll probably find groups, and you'll probably find groups that are funded by, I don't know, maybe people we've spoken about in the past. Could be, not saying it is, but could be a Soros group.
Not, and we're not going to get ahead of ourselves, but I think it is very strange that suddenly there have been several fatal incidents in our country that have had this type of a common theme. So I'm sure we'll find out more about that.
Yeah, and you know, one of the most effective tools in the law enforcement quiver, arrows in the quiver, so to speak, is the ability to hide who you are. Staking out, just hiding who you're identifying. Can you imagine if the CIA had to identify themselves as CIA wherever they went? What is Gavin Newsom trying to accomplish here?
Well, Gavin Newsom is politically illiterate because the fact that state officials are required to show badges is completely irrelevant to the fact that federal law enforcement has supremacy over state law enforcement on areas that are for the federal government to handle, namely border security, immigration, deportation. California's laws simply do not apply. They can have press conferences and distastefully during a important time of grieving in this country and grandstand and be fake, but it doesn't matter, Gavin. Your law is not constitutional. It will not be upheld in court. It is silly. It is silly virtue signaling, and it is embarrassing for a state legislature to waste its time doing this instead of doing its job to keep its citizens safe.
So how does it work, Harmeet? It's kind of like, is it like kind of marijuana laws where each state decides whether it's legal or not, and the feds still have it illegal, so they don't necessarily enforce it. But if you piss them off enough, the feds will come in and enforce it. My point is, so Gavin can say ICE can't wear masks. ICE clearly will be wearing masks in the state of California. I'm guessing Tom Homan isn't going to cave to California and Gavin Newsom. So does there become illegal arrests or illegal detentions? How does it work?
I would like to see that arrest. I would like to see the California Highway Patrol or what have you, or whatever, cops try to arrest ICE agents. I don't think it's going to happen. That's what I mean. I think this is all just silly virtue signaling. And I and Bill Asaley, the acting United States attorney out there in Los Angeles, have both publicly stated that this law is a legal nullity and should be ignored by federal officials doing their jobs in California.
Trump has said he's going to, or has, I don't know if he's actually done it yet, deemed Antifa a terrorist organization. Tell us how that changes the game.
Well, it's kind of a new thing, but it is overdue, in my opinion, for federal law enforcement to be treating Antifa as a domestic terror threat. And there are various ways that can be done. Again, I don't want to tip off people as to what the exact details of it are, but the president has laid out in his executive order some very accurate facts. I've been following and suing and dealing with Antifa for the better part of a decade now. And what I can tell you is his order is exactly correct. It is a paramilitary terror type organization that is loosely organized deliberately into little cells. Each of those little cells doesn't know what the other cell is doing. They report up through a management structure. There are national leaders of Antifa who travel around fomenting violence at different functions and riots that they have. They evade capture, yes. They are armed like military. They are issued with weapons, including hardened gloves and things like that. And they regularly wreak mayhem, including against ICE facilities on the West Coast. And so it is way past time for the United States to take this very seriously and put resources behind it, learn about it. ICE is kind of Antifa is kind of an outgrowth of Black Bloc and other type of political left-wing Marxist movements in Europe. And there's a lot of study about what they're doing over there. So we just need to do our homework, learn, and devote the necessary resources to this. I for one, am relieved this is happening because this is a national terror threat.
Harmeet, really good having you on the show. We'll get you back again very soon. So much on your plate, my dear. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, we'll be back 2.5.